This video is sponsored by...
Thank you! Wow, I can see we have a wide audience tonight. In our everyday lives, we may associate carbohydrates with just food, but it is actually much, much more. And really, what are carbohydrates? Well, carbohydrates are massive organic compounds present in natural foods that may include sugars, starches, or cellulose. Chemically, carbohydrates are neutral compounds of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Carbohydrates are a part of the three types of nutrients used by the body for energy. In that case, our body can break down sugar into glucose, a sugar that is used to feed cells. We name carbohydrates in 5 different ways: mono, di, tri, poly, and hetero. Smaller saccharides can be substances such as glucose, fructose, and galactose, and larger saccharides are things like starches, cellulose, and glycagon. Fructose, glucose, and galactose all have chemical formula of C6H12O6, and polysaccharides have a chemical formula of C6H12O6N. Carbohydrates are considered macronutrients due to them being required in large amounts. For humans, carbohydrates provide energy for our muscles and the nervous system. Glycogen, a polysaccharide of glucose, has various roles in the liver and muscle. Once proteins or carbohydrates are ingested and digested by the human body, the pancreas releases insulin for the blood. Let the blood glucose levels rise. After this meal is finished digestion, the body halts the secretion of insulin. To end carbohydrates, I'm going to quickly give a description of a variety of carbohydrates you may have heard of. Lactose, a disaccharide made of 2 molecules, comprises 2 to 8% of all milk products and is referred to as milk sugar. Maltose is a disaccharide made up of 2 glucose molecules linked together. Maltose is also referred to as malt sugar and is the least common natural disaccharide. Since it is formed from glucose, maltose has reducing sugar capabilities. Moving on to nucleic acids. These are some of the most important structures in any living organism. Nucleic acids are molecules that transfer genetic information from one organism's generation to the other. The role of nucleic acids are to be primary storage for genetic information containing things such as traits. Nucleic acids are the reason protein synthesis occurs. Nucleic acids are made up of nucleotide monomers which are linked. Nucleotides have 3 parts: a nitrogen base, a 5-carbon sugar, and a phosphate group. Nucleic acids nucleotides are linked together from a process of dehydration synthesis. This is when nitrogen bases are joined together with the loss of one water molecule. Phosphates, sugars, and organic bases are the molecules that make up nucleic acid. Vegetables like broccoli, cabbage, leek, etc. all have traces of RNA in them. Deoxyribonucleic acid is a molecule composed of 2 coiling chains that holds the information for cell traits. When a cell is divided, the DNA copies and pastes from one generation to the other. The organization of DNA is in chromosomes contained in the nucleus of our cells. DNA is the storage of the programmatic instructions for cell activities. When an organism produces offspring, it passes the information down. The DNA's multi-helix structure is composed of a phosphate deoxyribose sugar and the 4 nitrogen bases: adenine, guanine, thymine, cytosine. Ribonucleic acid is nucleic acid that is within every living organism. RNA's role in the body is to transport the information of DNA for controlling the synthesis of proteins, but in some cases, RNA can act as the genetic information storage. That's all for my TED Talk experience that I gave to you.
You know, lipids and proteins are where it's at. None of your puny carbohydrates and nucleic acid.
Those things suck.
You see, lipids are more than just fats as most people think. Lipids are actually insoluble in water, which means they don't dissolve. Lipids actually comprise 6 divisions: fats, oils, waxes, certain vitamins like A, D, E, and K, and hormones. Now, these divisions go really in depth, so I'm going to talk about the main definitions and briefly discuss the other definitions. Fats are nutrients that will supply our body if there is a shortage of glucose. These fats can be divided into unsaturated, saturated, and trans fats. Now, saturated fats, or solid fats, mostly come from animal foods such as dairy and meat. These fats can be located in many oils, like palm and coconut oil. These fats will increase your cholesterol levels, which means they're not healthy. Unsaturated fats are the opposite of saturated fats. These fats are much healthier and cannot be found in dairy and meat. They are typically found in nuts and other oils like soya oil and vegetable oil. Trans fats are the unhealthiest types of fats. They are heavily processed both physically and chemically through the process of hydrogenation. Hydrogenation is when a liquid solidifies and it makes it last longer. Okay, now, vitamins are compounds that help our eyesight and is found most in dairy products. Vitamin D can be further divided to D2 and D3. Vitamin D2 prevents vitamin D deficiency and vitamin D3 helps our skin. Vitamin E will repair our cells and vitamin K will help our body synthesize proteins. Now, let's talk about oils. Oils can be any kind of non-polar chemical substance. Oils are also hydrophobic, which literally means just fear of water, and lipophobic, which means fear of fats. Now, we've heard the saying, mind your own beeswax, right? Well, beeswax is part of a family of other waxes. Waxes are long chains of alcohol. Hey, stop. Waxes can be as long as 32 carbon atoms. Now, most bodybuilders use steroids. Steroids are a part of the hormone family, which are chemical structures. Amino and icosanoids are also hormones. Amino adds melatonin to your brain, and icosanoids will signal the molecules. However, hormones can both have negative and positive consequences on our body. A negative includes steroids, as it increases your cholesterol levels, which raises your energy. Shifting gears, we're going to talk about proteins. Now, we all know proteins, but what are proteins? According to the script, proteins refer to nitrogen organic compounds and consist long and complicated chains. Also, this script says that there are 8 types of protein. Those proteins are enzyme inhibitors, trypsin, bovine pancreatic nucleus, ricin, urease, titin, hermycin, and protein G. Enzyme inhibitors will attach themselves to enzyme to slow down any activity. Now, enzyme inhibitors can go into themselves as competitive, non-competitive, and uncompetitive. Competitive will discontinue, non-competitive will reduce, and uncompetitive will only happen with complex enzymes. Trypsin is another protein. It will hydrolyze the proteins and is located not only in ours, but many vertebrates' digestive system. There are many forms of these proteins like trypsinogen, zymogen, and is linked to amylase, lipase, chymotrypsinogen, and enterokinase. Bovine pancreatic ribonuclease RNase A is a protein that will contribute to single-stranded DNA and is found in our pancreas. Ricin is one of the most toxic proteins to humans. Its LD50 could vary depending where it enters in our body. Urease is a protein part of 2 superfamilies, amidohydrolase and phosphodiesterase. They're mostly in bacteria and soils. Now, titin is the largest protein by far. Its name will span 189,000 characters long. Can you believe that? Well, you should believe that. Hermycin is a non-heme iron protein and is used by 2 invertebrates. And lastly, protein G is an immunoglobulin protein. Protein G is linked to the other proteins such as protein A and L. This is why the 8 types of proteins can differ between 10 types or even many more. Well, that's today for our TEDx experience. Stay tuned next time where we will study jumbology and hunt alley gazelle.
Alley G.